You're never going to play your best golf if your impact looks like this. But I've helped thousands of golfers go from that to this in two really, really simple steps, and I'm going to teach you those in this video. So the first phase to this is understanding a really important detail at setup which so many golfers overlook. I've got a HackMotion device on here which is measuring what my wrist is doing. If I just stand as naturally as I can and put my lead hand in its very, very natural position, you can see that number on the right hand side, it says +1. That's very, very close to zero, obviously. What that really means is my fingers are in line with my forearm. This is incredibly natural position for me to be in. You can see now it's at 0. So this is really natural. Now let's have a look at that kind of perfect delivery position that so many golfers are after, where we've kind of got lag stored up and we're ready to really deliver the club, kind of what we see with the pros. So if I put myself in that position, you can see that I've got a good amount of angle in here. Club is stored up. This is a really, really powerful position. What is that number? It's the same. It's +2. That's exactly where it was at setup. So when I take my hand off, look where my fingers are relative to my forearm. My hand is still in that natural position. So when we're at that delivery that we want, it's actually a really natural position, but there's a really tiny detail at setup, which is why so many golfers struggle to do that. We know there's a phrase called kind of wrist set in the golf swing, or wrist cock, or wrist hinge. And really, we have to establish that at setup. So when we look at that number that was on the screen, watch what happens when I place my hand on the golf club correctly. That goes from a number which is very close to 0. But when I place my hand on, what do? I point the fingers down, sort of almost between my heels. Now look at that number, -41. So when I place my hand on now, the club goes right in the base of the fingers. The sort of pad of my hand can sit on top of the handle, and I can place my hand on there. Look at that number now, it's -45. So yes, we had a very natural position at delivery, but we didn't have a natural position at setup. My wrist set was established at setup. This is how we place the hand on the golf club. Now the reason we do that is because what that then allows, if I hold my forearm in position, it allows me to move my hand back to its natural position. You can see that number now is again close to 0, it's kind of -5, but it's that gives me that angle between my forearm and the wrist. So what we're not doing is we're not creating that angle through the golf swing, we're establishing it at setup. If I place my hand on the club in a really poor fashion, so many golfers will do this, you can see how the fingers are very much in line with my forearm, and I place my hand around, that number now is only -12. So what can I do in terms of my delivery? Well, in terms of my delivery, I've got 0 chance of ever getting where I need to. Look, that number is still +2. So that's my hand in its natural position, but I'm not able to get that club stored up. So if you're not setting this angle correctly at address, you're never going to get those impacts that we see the best players in the world do. You're never going to get that lag. You're never going to get those hands forwards. So as soon as I put that club too much through the palm of my hand, -10, there's not enough angle there, I'm always going to be struggling with my impact. I'm always going to be scooping, I'm always going to be shallow. I'm never going to get that compressed feeling and that lag. So before we move on to the second drill, I really want you to understand how the hand is going on the golf club. What you're going to do is you're going to take your hand from its natural position. You're going to take those fingers, you're going to point them back towards your heels. Almost, not fully, but almost as much as you can. Then you place the hand against the grip, and you can place your fingers round, the pad will sit on top, and the thumb will sit on top. The test that you can do, and this is brilliant if you don't have a HackMotion device, is hold the forearm. Can you get the club up to horizontal? You can see that I can do that. Look at that number now, it's very close to 0. That's my natural position. So I now know that because of the way I place my hand on the golf club, if I was to rotate that club to the right, look at that. I can get my hand in a very natural position, it's close to 0, but I've got the ability to have that lag. This is so key. When we're thinking of that delivery and that lag, we often dive into the downswing, the transition, what's your weight doing? But if we start to look earlier than that at setup, we often see the real fault. So let me go ahead and hit one. Fingers go down. We're at -40. That's perfect. There's my little test. So much better in terms of the strike, more compressed. And now we can move on to the drill, which is called the kind of float loading drill. Before we go into this second phase in this drill, one of the biggest misconceptions about this kind of downswing lag or this impact position is that you need to kind of force it into that position or hold the lag, where that's not really the case. If we do a little demonstration, I'm holding obviously the top here, just 2 fingers. I don't have a lot of control over this club, but how do I get that club head to lag behind the grip? Well, it doesn't require me to put any force into the golf club specifically, but if I just create a certain sequence of events, the club head is always going to lag behind my hand. So I can get to a point where there is kind of shaft lean at this almost impact position. That's not because I'm forcing or twisting or torquing the club, it's because my sequencing was good. So that's what we're going to try and tap into here. We're going to do a little drill with the wrists and we're going to work on your sequencing. Now I call this a float loading drill, and this is absolutely brilliant because you're instantly going to get that kind of delivery that you want, that lag that you want, and you're going to feel it in the strike. So I'm going to take a setup just inside this golf ball, and I'm going to take my lead foot, I'm going to step it across to my trail foot. Now the reason that so many golfers struggle with this delivery position is because they will overload the wrists in the backswing and then very quickly unload the wrists in the downswing. And when we get that in the golf swing, when we get this overloading and this early unloading, throwing the club down actually forces the golfer sort of back. So you might have hit shots in the past where you almost feel like you're being pushed sort of back and up. And if that has ever happened to you, this drill is going to be absolutely brilliant for you. We're going to be unloading the wrists in the backswing and then loading them in transition. So I'm going to go again, lead foot across the trail foot, and I'm going to have a very light grip pressure. And I'm actually going to make a backswing where I start and begin by moving the grip away, but actually leaving the club head on the ground. So I'm going to be making a backswing where the grip starts and the club head lags behind. So grip starts, club head lags behind. Very similar to this movement. When I do this movement, what happens? The grip starts, the club head lags behind. And that's what we need to create that sequence of events. So when I'm doing that, grip starts, club head lags behind. When I get to around about hands at chest height, I'm going to be starting and stepping into the golf ball. What will happen is as I step into the golf ball, that's going to cause my arm to move in this direction, and the club is suddenly going to kind of switch places with my hand. If I kind of show you a little demonstration, it'll become a lot clearer. So we go normal grip, lead foot goes across, we go grip starts, and we go through. Now as I show you that in slow motion, you'll see just how in transition that golf club is being lagged behind my hands. And I can 100% tell you, it's not because I'm forcing it, it's not because I'm trying to hold anything, it's not because I'm trying to point the grip at the ball, it's not because I'm feeling like I do anything to the grip, it's just a sequence of events and the way I've created my backswing and the way I begin my downswing that creates that lag. I guarantee you that there's no great player out there who's intentionally trying to hold that lag. Now as I start to do that with a golf ball, what we should start to see is a relatively low ball flight. It should feel really compressed, the launch angle should be relatively low. Look at that last launch angle there, 25.5 degrees. This one, going to be much lower. Okay, I'm in completely different strike. I can't tell you how much better that feels off the club face. It feels more compressed. And when we look at the launch angle, we see it down at 11.6, so 25 point something down to 11.6. And that's because I had the handle forward impact. Now, did I in that golf swing ever intentionally get the handle forward? No. The 2 things I did really well is number 1, I set my wrist angle at setup, which I had to do, and then I had a really good sequence of events. And when I have a good sequence of events and the correct hold, you get the rest for free. You get the lag, you get the handle forward, you get the compression, you get those feels that you want. But if you place the grip incorrectly, if you overload the wrists, if your sequencing is poor, then it's going to be completely different. It doesn't feel compressed. When we come to hit shots, we probably don't want to make our backswing as extreme as this, but we can start to tap into that a little bit. So when I actually hit shots, I want to be feeling relatively wide going back. And then as I change from backswing to downswing, then I get that club kind of resetting. It's not going to look as extreme as it did in the drill, but we can tap into the same movements. My weight and my pressure is still shifting back towards the target before I complete my backswing. And it's that movement that causes the club head to lag behind my hand. So when you look at my backswing and my downswing, you're going to see a much wider position going back and a much narrower position on the way down.